Hey everybody, back here again on behalf of Stewart's Opera House in Nelsonville, Ohio, and we're working on their after-school music program, and I'm going to be doing a little expansion today on what we did last week and talking about the bass. And we talked about roots, like a G note and a G chord, or a C note and a C chord, and we talked about fifths, like the one, the G, G, A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, G and D compared to each other. That is the fifth note in a chord. We're going to be adding the third as part of this experience today. So root, third, fifth, third, root. Okay, and I think it's important before we get any farther with that is to talk a little bit about music theory, which we are going to do right now. Hey everybody, I'm back now, and I went and I grabbed my trusty keyboard, and by keyboard I mean iPad, because it's going to be the easiest way for me to show you this. When we talk about music theory, we talk about the structure behind how music is built, and I keep using the words roots and fifths and roots and thirds and fifths and chords. Now, most of the music we listen to in Western culture, that means like Europeans and Americans and things, are based on do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do is very easy to see on a keyboard. You can see this note is a C. C major is the easiest thing to play on the piano because it has no sharps or flats. So these keys. And you can hear, or do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. That is the scale upon which most, a song would be built on. Now, the chords themselves that accompany that melody, that a song is, a song might have a melody that goes, right? Would have a chord structure, and chords are built by skipping notes in the scale. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 becomes 1, 3, 5. That is a C major chord, right? Now, if we move over, root third 5, all chords have root third 5 in them. The next chord is a D minor chord, starting C, D, D, F, A. Root third 5th. Now you can hear there's a slight difference between those two chords. One is a major chord and one is a minor chord. And that's because there's different distances between the root and the third and the third and the fifth in those chords. There's actually 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps to one, and then 1, 2, 3 to the next one. Go to the minor chord and that switches. So the minor chord has 1, 2, 3 on the bottom and 4 on the top. So that's the difference between a major and a minor chord. All chords have a root, a third, and a fifth. Now later we'll start adding colorful tones, 7s and 9s and things to chords. But basic chord structure is root, third, fifth. Root, third, fifth, root, third, fifth. And we'll talk about that on the bass guitar here in a second. Thank you. I am back, and I have the super trusty, handy little tiny bass in my hands. Now, a little bit ago, I was playing do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do on the piano. We'll get into what those shapes or those scales mean eventually on the bass guitar and on the regular guitar. But for now, we're not all that worried about that. But the idea that our scales are what make up our chords. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So in a C major chord, C, E, G. And you'll frequently hear bass lines that do things like that. Not things like that, make sounds like that. Root, third, fifth. And I'm going to give you examples of all this on sheets of paper with tablature and with notation so you can actually use them. So there are ways to use the third to meet other chords. So earlier in our last lesson, I had a root, a 1 chord, a 5 chord, a 6 chord, and a 4 chord progression. So let's say we're moving from the 1 chord and the 4 chord, right? The 1, 2, 3 takes you 2, 3. Well, the 4 chord has these notes. So you'll hear the 4, it's the 4th tone of the scale. So you'll hear, frequently you'll hear a bass line do something to this effect. Using the 3rd to get to the 4th chord. And I'm going to give you examples of that in your music. Now, when you're playing a minor chord, you have a little different way to approach that, because the difference between a major chord and a minor chord is literally the middle note. The 3rd that we're talking about is 1/2 step lower. On your bass, that represents a fret on the instrument. So on a piano, it's just literally moving to the next key down, down being to your left, because it's lower in pitch. But in this case, so this is a G note and a B note in a D chord, or sorry, in a G chord, G note and a B chord. This is a G note and a B flat. That gives us the minor feel. I move to C minor. That's using the minor 3rd and the major 3rd. And it's really an easy way to approach this, is to see this as a shape. So you can see major is literally 1 string over and 1 fret down, down being lower in pitch on a string, and then to that 2 and 2 thing we talked about in the last video. Sorry, 2 and 1. 2 frets up, 1 string over. The octave is there. It's 2 strings up, 2 strings over, 2 frets up. So we have a 3rd, 5th, 3rd, major 3rd, root, major 3rd, 5th, major 3rd, root, minor 3rd, 5th, minor 3rd. When you have a chord that you're going to be playing something against, if someone says it's a minor chord, well, as long as you know where the root is, and I do believe I gave a chart along with the last video, you can find, if I wanted to play an E minor chord progression, I could play, go to D major, C major, D major, and back to E minor. 3rd is lower, that's 2 frets down and 1 string over. If it was major, it would be 1 fret up. Minor. Really simple concept to gather, and then just by knowing that, you can start making some really cool sounds on your bass guitar. I'm going to show you another concept here in a second. Let me pause this for a minute. Another concept in music is the usage of chromatic notes, which means notes that connect to each other by half steps. So the major scale has both half steps and whole steps in it. There's a whole step. 2 frets is a whole step. And then a half step is 1 fret. Now, you'll hear a lot of times in music, you'll hear bass guitarists connect the root, the 3rd, and the 5th together with half steps. So you'll hear something of this effect. Root, 3rd, 5th becomes root, literally 1 fret at a time. Now this idea works for both minor and major. I'm going to do it on minor now. Or you can make a lot of cool bass lines just by knowing this simple little method. Major is there and minor is there. Now I'm going to write up a little chord progression for you here really quick, record it so we can actually play along with something and you can hear this in action, all right? Thank you. So in using this idea, I'm going to play G chords and C chords, a G and a C note. And the chords will be, you'll hear them when I put the guitar part on. And I'm going to connect these. I'm only going to use the root, the 3rd, the 5th, and the two connecting notes that connect chromatic. And I'm going to play along and try to make a funky bass line. Now, I'm not a bass player. I'm just trying to help you learn to play the bass. So be nice to me, okay? Here we go. That's the chord progression. That's a G chord, then a C chord. Back and forth, right? And that's not an atypical musical progression. You'll hear that in a lot of music. Here we go. Or something like this. Okay, you can get the point to that, right? I stopped the music a little bit. All I'm doing is taking the root, the third, the fifth, and using these notes in between to connect them. Now, not being a bass player, every once in a while, I'll say, hey man, I need somebody to play bass in a band. Well, I'll come out and I'll try. And those are the tools that I use, just very simple connecting notes to get around a thing. I'm going to record a minor progression here in a second and do the same thing for you, all right? I got a pair of headphones on here now because I want to make sure that I can hear the metronome I'm playing, because my guitar part really isn't all that tight of a rhythm sound. So in the earlier example, I was using the major third. So as you can see, I'm going one string over and one fret down to the B note. That's a B note on your bass, a G and a B. This time I'm going to be using the B flat, which is the minor of that feel rather than the major. And I'm going to do that for both chords. I'm going to come over here and use the same shape to play the C minor chord. All right? Bear with me. This is really not my thing. So to the G chord. As you can see, you can get a lot of mileage for a bass guitarist out of just knowing that. Very, very basic, simple concept. Okay, I'm going to record one more chord progression, then I'm going to do root, third, fifth on that, and probably end the video because it's a lot to absorb in a week. So, all right, thank you very much. All right, and similar to the video we did last week, I'm going to use a 1 chord, 5 chord, minor 6 chord, and major 4 chord progression. Very common chord progression in music, very common group of chords to use together. Now, in the earlier video, we used a lot of roots, right? That's G, D, E, and C, following the chords, like to their names. And then we also did roots and fifths, G's and D's, D's and A's, E's and B's, and C's and G's together. Right, which you can make really great bass lines just using that particular set of notes. Now we're going to add the third into these. On the G, it'd be G, B, D, D, F sharp, A, E, G, B, and C, E, G would be the notes you're going to use. Now I'm not a bass player, but I'm going to do the best I can to craft a little line, and I will make it something that I can repeat, and I will give you a transcription of it so you can practice along with it, okay? Well, here we go. I'm going to start the music. There's your G chord, D chord, E minor chord, and then your C chord. So all I was doing was connecting those sections of those chord groups together. Well, I got to the D, switch to the D shape, E minor, a lot of really interesting ways to add a little bit of tension in the middle of your bass lines, and you're playing, and really when it all comes down to it, it's up to you. Use these tools to create neat music of your own, or to mimic the people that you like and you want to listen to. We're going to be doing more examples like this in the future, so if this is helpful, please let me know. If it's something else I could have explained better, I'm open for criticism, so don't hesitate to criticize me. I like it. All right, you have a great day. Bye.